Hi, Anton. Welcome.
Hi, Michael. Great to be here.
Yeah, all right.
At your home.
Yeah, yes, you are welcome here. You came all the way from Kiev. And let's just start right out. In the last 2 days has marked 2 years from the start of the war.
Big invasion, because war started earlier, but
Okay.
big invasion started exactly 2 years ago. You're right.
Oh, yeah. And so tell us, start us off maybe, what's happened to the churches in the last 2 years in Kiev? What's happened?
It's such a big topic and big question. I can spend all day telling you about what happened.
Yeah.
Actually, all our lives are separated on before and after. And everything the war changed everything, what we do, how we preach, how we teach, and even change understanding of the church. You know, Michael, when war started, and you know, all this institutional, staff-oriented, management-oriented church just collapsed in the first 24 hours. Because all of that positional leaders, positional pastors, or other people in the staff, they just run away.
What do you mean positional?
Like positional in a staff, like manager, administrational guys, and everyone who in office doing their work. And in one day, when war started, they moved out from Ukraine or to other cities, and we understood that we cannot do church the way how we used to do it before. We cannot make Sunday program the way how we used to do it before, because we don't have people to do it. We don't have abilities to do it, and actually there was no electricity to do it. So in a 1 minute, in a 1 week, we start to understand that, if it's not a Sunday service, what does it mean? How we can do Sunday service without no electricity, no worship band like we used to have with 10 singers and music players, and how that church would function. So I believe that when war started, that trigger all this process of rethinking and this life risk also, and ideas and messages that work before war, after war started.
So you're okay. So you're saying that the everything in the churches right now is marked with the timetable of before the war and now after the war.
Yeah.
But you're also saying that you said institutional church. Many of those structures that were being used for what church is.
Yeah.
A Sunday morning event. You said.
Yeah.
You didn't do it anymore. You couldn't do it anymore. And you also said that many of the staff left. So what they how many left? How many churches are in Kiev? How many still exist?
I can talk about my church. Probably when war started, more than half of staff, I think 65% of staff moved because they tried to save their families, and they moved to Western Ukraine and Western cities. And most of leaders moved also. And in our church, it was doable. There was still people, so we continued to do work, meetings, and reshaping everything. But in other churches, smaller churches, I think more than 50% of churches in Ukraine, they stopped doing meeting and service because they had no people who can do it.
Who can lead it?
Yeah, who can lead it? Because the most connected one are pastors, and that's why they have a lot of connections. And the first one who leave. And not always. There are heroic pastors who stay all the time, but a lot of leaders been the first one who left city. But it was so interesting. I was witness when one church near us in Kiev, pastor left the church.
Okay.
And there was one diacon who was there, and he started to do ministry. And when in 3 months, previous pastor came back, he saw that this is completely different church with a different people, with a different leaders. And he was sitting on a Sunday gathering, and he told, now you are a senior pastor, and I giving you this church because this church not anymore mine. I don't have moral right anymore to lead this group of people because I didn't share with them what you have shared.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. That's why you become a pastor. Mm-hmm. So a lot of situations like this where you cannot learn and read about this in books. This is like unique things that we need to figure out what to do. Yeah.
So you're saying in general, it sounds like that a third of the churches, the leadership left.
Yeah.
And scattered either to the western side of Ukraine or
outside of Ukraine.
Or outside of Ukraine.
Yeah. But on the other hand, what happened? Local church become a part of life of local neighborhood and area, because there was no shops, no food in markets, no bread in you've been not able to buy bread. So when as a church we provide, we made a bakery, we opened doors, we start to cook food, we start to bring food from West Ukraine, we start to distribute it, do gathering and
so
pray.
You really became a family that supported each other in real life because you're in a time of war.
Yeah, so people been living in a church building, sleeping for weeks, and it's become like a home for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And every day, maybe 20, 30 people been sleeping and living there.
Yeah.
So, and people around place where churches start to understand, something interesting is happening here. Every day, they do evacuation, they bring and evacuate people from red zone, they provide help, and they start to come. And a lot of people came to our community because they saw that something is going on there, and we want to know and see what they are doing. Yeah. Even local criminals came and told us, if you need any help to unload something or to do something.
Why did they say this?
Because they want to be part of something big that's happening.
Wow. And
they want to help somehow. So that was interesting.
So tell us about, rewind the clock a little bit here, Anton.
I'll try.
So we met, we first came to understand these patterns of Acts and the way of Christ and his apostles. Talk to us about those beginning days. You came to an event where there's 20, 30 different countries of talking about these patterns, but you came, had no idea what was happening. When was this, 2016, 2018?
Probably 2018, yes.
2018, so 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
6 years ago. Just tell us very briefly about those beginnings, because now we're at a spot now where it's clear you have a home away from home, and yet we are together, part of something that's where we're a family of families. So, but it didn't always look.
During this war, I really feel us as a family. because all the support and help and work during the last 2 years with you guys, with Steve and other, that's amazing. It brings, like, I feel that I'm not alone in that situation. And
we have unity.
Yeah.
We have unity, but it didn't start there. So how did it get started? How did it get started? How did it get started?
So it started 6 years.
And what was going on in your mind?
In my mind, I came here after the big, huge conference in Atlanta.
Okay.
So, whole stadium, a lot of views, worshiping together. And I was there 3 days. And then I came here. And here I faced something completely different. Here I remember the first thing that surprised me the most here, that actually someone is listening. And when they ask questions, they listen, answer. And I figure out that here people are listening what I'm telling, and they're not quick with answers. And I thought, this is so different from what I saw before, when you try to explain something and you see that person is not listening. So I thought, okay, these people are very interested. They're listening, and they're really different form of interaction. And I'm in a ministry. I grew up in a Christian family, so I know all these problems and struggle of doing ministry and serving in a church, trying to grow up next generation and don't understanding how to do it right, and trying to find in the Bible what Jesus wants from us to do, what is his grand strategy. And then I remember the turning moment for me was studying the book of Acts, because I understood that Luke, he is not just giving a great commission of Jesus. He actually giving kind of instruction how to complete it, principles how to complete it. And I have read Acts 20 times, but I never read it like this, keeping this idea in head and seeing not a small fragments, but understanding each step. And I start to see Book of Acts on a different level. I start to see repetitions of ideas. I start to see how everything is connected. And we made it was a small cohort of people, 4 of us, but for each of us, that was a life-turning moment. We understood that in this mass of current, like a church, like each person got his own strategy and all, in this mass of what's going on around us, actually there is a way. And it is possible to find it. It is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a huge encouragement for me. I think without this understanding, I would fail and just to do something different in my life. But when I understand that God is doing something here in this world,
mm-hmm.
and he invites me to be part of this,
mm-hmm.
and I start to understand what is his grand strategy, that it's actually planting communities, establishing churches, being family of families,
mm-hmm.
being connected, serving to each other, one-mindedness, and we can reach it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that was turning moment in my ministry. And I became much more serious in my ministries, in what I was doing.
It sounds like, Anton, it's like before you were doing church. And then once you understood Acts the way you're saying,
being church.
You were being the church.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will think The Bible uses a lot of metaphors, and the Bible uses the family a lot. It uses a lot of familial language. And so they'll say the church is like a family. The church is like a family.
Church is a family.
But what a huge difference those two phrases are.
Yeah.
And that's what it sounds like you're saying is if you're building a family, if Christ is truly building his gatherings, his families, and he's asking us to participate in building his new kingdom. His new kingdom is his church as a family.
Yeah.
Then we shouldn't be just doing church services. That just changes everything.
This image from the first section of Book of Acts is very strong to me. When I read about church in Jerusalem and temple in Jerusalem, and I see all first section, I see it's like a tension between old temple and the new church. Yeah. And Jerusalem is too small for both of them. Or one will go or other need to go. Like Jerusalem is too small. And I understand that something really similar going on now. Because the way how we Westerners, and I'm talking about Ukrainians, used to do church is not very different from the temple idea. Every Jewish came to temple. Every Sunday we come to
the temple.
To the temple.
To the church building.
But on opposite side we see being a church, being a temple, living life together, sharing life. Okay. So this tension, it's like goes.
It's still there today.
Yeah, it's not all. It's still current tension.
And it sounds like the way you started was before the war, after the war, during the war. We now that the war is going on, those that were just doing church, left.
Yeah,
they left the scene.
And new people try to understand. Okay, how to do? It's a different time. What was working doesn't work now, and we need to change. But how to change? So this is an open question for a lot of leaders in Ukraine. They're trying to understand, because it's so easy for church in Ukraine in current situation to become just like NGO, social organization, distributing aid, gathering people and praying, but actually never become a family. And never establish no one in
the faith.
In the faith, yeah.
Yeah. So talk to us about, you're in a time of war, and yet you had shared before that sovereignly a year or so before, you were with a group of leaders, some of which are not here anymore, have died in the war. Yeah. But together, you guys were moving through the story, the meta narrative of the whole of God's cosmos, God's meta narrative, and that the kingdom was the Old Testament, Genesis 12, all the way up to the kingdom is announced, the kingdom is started.
Moses, David.
The promised plan back through Moses, David. But talk to us just about what happened there and how that. Talk to us about that time frame.
I think this year before war, God prepared us and our cohort. He prepared us because we've been studying and researching story together, the story, and connecting all these elements together. When war comes, one of the biggest struggles is you lose certainty and you lose understanding. My biggest lesson was and that is a result of the story, is if you don't know meta-narrative, pre-story, you don't understand, it's hard to understand what's going on now. All events, what we are walking through, what we are living, the story helped me to put in a bigger framework and to see it in a bigger God's framework, in the light of His story. And when I do it, everything starts to make sense. I understand that in this framework, this world is really collapsing. And yes, in a war, when I come on the front line, I feel how this world is collapsing. I really feel how evil is this world and what is a real evil, but also understand what is our calling, to be a new creation in the middle of all this collapsing world, to be family of family, to be fulfilled with the Spirit, to be renewed with our minds, unity of mind, unity as a family, learning to be surrendered to real Creator, to real King. And I believe if you don't have this wider framework, if you don't have this pre-story, it's so easy in a crisis like we have to lose all values and to lose all meaning of everything, to lose understanding why, what, and what we're doing.
Yeah. So so the framework of God's whole story keeps you rooted, gives you hope, gives you. You had shared a story before, Anton, about how you're in the practical situations of you. One of your leaders is killed on the front lines. You've got to go retrieve their body, and you're with the parents.
Yeah.
You're traveling with the parents to the front line to get the body and then to bring it back. And bring us into those moments just for a minute. What
I because it's 8 hours there and 8 hours.
8 hours there. Wow.
And so 8 hours back, and I'm with parents, and we are talking. And how, in this framework, what can I say to encourage them? And when I think about this in the light of the framework and meta-narrative, I understand that. And that's what I told them. It's not the end of the story. It is not the end of the story. We will hug him, Anton. We will meet with him. He will cook for us.
His name was Anton as well.
Yes. And we will meet with him. He will be with us. Jesus will come, and everyone who surrendered him will resurrect. And he will be with us. And he will bring joy to us. And I told, God will bring justice. Nobody can run away from his justice. Even if we will lose, even if we will die, even if everything will collapse, we can be sure that everyone who do evil cannot run away from the responsibility, as the real judge is coming. And he will come, and he will ask them about Anton's death, and there will be costs that they will pay. But no materials can prepare for the situations. You need to have this framework, this kerygma in front of you. Keep it in front of you, and then God can give you fresh understanding, but only if you have this truth framework
right in front of you.
In front of you.
Yeah. So
and I don't want to. I'm failing to keep it. I'm not a good example, but I understand how important it is, and I understand when you lose this, how it impact on you. You just become depressed, no willingness to do nothing, and then you need to bring this truth back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and be rooted in it.
The kerygma, meaning the gospel itself, the gospel of Jesus Christ, and then his teachings that accompany it.
Yeah.
The didache, the teachings that all people should be maturing in, and that's the full. That's why all the 27 letters were written, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All the letters themselves are written to further establish people, to further root them, so they can live themselves a full, abundant life, but also in the way that they're living, even in times of war. I mean, you look in trials and tribulations, that they will have a hope that's beyond human understanding. Yes. But you can't get there with just a simple, if everyone remains babes in the faith, and that's
with the simple doctrines you cannot have.
No. And so you've even in the face of war, we've talked with you so much about how we that even in a time of war, you have not made it an excuse to stop maturing yourself and maturing your people in the faith. Why? Of all places in the world, you should have the most excuse of anyone to say you don't need to. You need to focus on different things
because
during the war. So why?
War, it's not excuse, because if not establishing other in the faith, what else church can do? Without this, church really becomes organization, NGO, or something. And I believe that in a war, establishing that was what is needed the most, because that helps to keep the right perspective on all events, crazy events that are happening around.
Yeah.
And we need to know that there are things that are more important than our lives, our survival, our truth. There are things bigger and more important than us. And if not establishing, if not doing this, you just will be affected by all these crazy things and be not reflecting God's image, not God's desire.
This is quite a journey, Anton. We don't. No one knows how where this goes from here, but the partnership. It's not a partnership. The
friendship.
It's friendship. Not even friendship. It's family. I mean, for you to say what you've said in the most recent days about when you come here, you stay with a certain family, and they just love you to death.
Don McKelly. They're real in my family.
They are real in your family.
But yeah, that feels like that.
We have been inspired, encouraged, blessed, just about in the face of war, how you've continued to not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your own mind and the renewing of the mind of everyone around you. You have taken seriously the 27 letters to further establish them in the faith. So, Anton, before we end, though, you picked up this book, From Christendom to Apostolic Mission. It was sitting here. It's a great book. But what did we find in the beginning here? The cover image here has the first Christians in Kiev.
Actually, the first Christians in Kiev. Kiev was baptized in 888. No, 988.
988, what happened?
Christianity came to Kiev.
Christianity came.
Yes,
They were baptized.
and whole
that's what you said.
Kiev was baptized. So yeah, that is a picture of that.
Oh, yeah. All right, well, the impact of Christianity is...
Yeah, in Kiev we have a legend that one of Jesus' apostles,
Yeah,
Saint Andrew,
okay.
he came to Kiev, and he was sitting on a Kiev hills, and he made a prophecy that this Kiev will be a heart of Christianity in this area. And I know that hill, I don't know, is it truth or just fantasy legend, but we know this hill, and yeah. When
Well,
you will be in Kiev, I will show you that.
Well,
hill.
I will be there
Yeah.
with you, and I look forward to seeing that place.
Yeah.
But more important, I look forward to you fulfilling that prophecy of establishing people in the faith so that place can be a hub for Christianity. What a tall task. But
With God's mercy and with His help and blessing, I don't know in my generation or in next, but I'm sure it will be.
let's be faithful to what God gives us now.
Yeah.
All right, Anton. This is